Hello and welcome to the big weekend for Spotlight Indie. We are live with you guys. If you are tuned in live, thank you for joining us. If you are catching up on this, thank you for joining us. It is great to have you here. We are here to celebrate the legend that is Phil Parker. Phil, how are you doing?
Yeah, fine, thank you. I'm just recovering from being called a legend, and it's really not true. But yes, I'm really fine, thank you. Just a little bit nervous, I have to say, that there's so much sort of dependent upon all of this. So I'm a little bit nervous if I start talking rubbish. That's why. And it's not because I normally talk rubbish
most of the time, you know?
Yeah, exactly. It's on brand for you, Phil. Don't worry, it's all good.
What's rubbish? Thank you.
That's what we're here for.
It's gonna be great. We of course are here to celebrate Phil's live launch because he's launching a book. He is an amazing author, a fantastic voice in the indie world, and and the community. And I know that there's many people who are tuning in who love Phil and love his books. So please cheer him on in the comments. Make him feel good about this launch, because launching a book is it's a nerve-wracking thing. Are you nervous, Phil? Are you nervous?
Oh, very, very nervous indeed. Yeah, very nervous. You know what it's like until you start getting reviews coming in. You've got very few people. You've got your beta readers, and you've got your editor, who you rely on, enormously. And I'm looking at Phil while I'm saying that, to sort of to let you know that you haven't written something that is an absolute load of tripe. So it's when it goes out into the readers' world that you think, oh God, I hope it's all right. So that's where I am now. Yes, just slowly having a quiet, nervous breakdown here, just worrying.
Perfect. We are expecting, hopefully, Phil's cover provider, artist, Ken, is going to be joining us at some point, hopefully through this. Not at the start, but some point through. So we'll look forward to welcoming Ken. And but in the meantime, we're joined by another Phil Williams, and Damien Larkin. Hi, Phil. Hi, Damien. How are you guys doing?
Yeah, doing good, Fraser. And to be honest, I think we should probably address something before we kick off here, right? So first off, obviously, two Phils on the same call. This is going to get confusing. So I'm suggesting that we call Phil Parker Phil A, Phil Williams Phil B. We'll call Kenneth Dawson Phil C, and I'll be Ken, right? So
that sounds good. I'm just going to assume if someone says Phil that they'll be referring to Phil.
Just mind that.
I'll just be like,
don't mind that
guy.
Yeah, and if anybody says, it's that idiot, I'll just say, oh yeah, that's me.
I thought you were pointing up at Damien then. I was like, that's really hard.
Yeah, that's on my screen.
Just because I posted that picture. That's all it is. Just because I posted that picture. One time.
Alex is here to say congratulations. Thanks for tuning in, Alex, and congratulations, Phil. Very excited to get another HBO of the Arcane.
Cheers, Alex. That guy is an absolute
great guy.
By the way, I love that guy.
Yeah.
Hands devil.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, absolutely. And for everybody who has tuned in or wants to see more of Alex, just look at the previous videos that have been put on today. He's in loads of them, and he will continue to be for the rest of the weekend. Phil, obviously we're here to launch stuff. So what are you here to launch? Tell us a little bit about it.
Okay. Before we start, I just want to do one little personal thing. I would love to wish Bjorn Larson happy birthday, because I'm really disappointed that he can't make it today, because he's celebrating his birthday, which I think is hugely inconsiderate when he could have been involved.
Selfish.
He's passed up the chance, but I said all the same, because I'm a nice guy, I will wish him happy birthday here publicly to the rest of the world. So happy birthday, Bjorn. Right, what am I launching? Sorry, Dave.
Should we sing him happy birthday, or we save that for later?
I've been told by one or two people not to, because apparently the weather's bad enough outside that singing will only make it worse. So just
fair. Look, that's fair.
This weekend is the launch of the Indie Writer's Voice, which is the magazine that's been created by a group of indie authors from Britain and Ireland. And Sorry, Holly, I am not singing. No, you really are. The Creative Commune are a bunch of British and Irish writers. We get together on a regular basis and meet up. And one of the things that we decided to do was to create a magazine to support indie authors all over the place, really. And our first magazine goes live this weekend. It will be free. We'll be launching it on all sorts of social media applications. And what's in it? We've got loads of reviews by various people within the group. We've got articles that are about what it's like to, or the need for editing as an indie author, the problems and the issues and the answers as far as marketing if you're an indie author. We've got some short stories by indie authors, one of which is up there, that guy there. So we've got that.
Yeah.
Everyone screams.
You're supposed to be singing, not dancing, Bill. You're supposed to be singing.
And so it's a great magazine. Lots and lots of things that I think will be useful for indie authors. And so it's completely free as well. So look out on social media channels starting from tomorrow. And the Creative Commune will be sharing lots of advice, lots of sort of fun articles and so on. So really hope people will get it, because I think it's the beginning of really strengthening what indie authors can be if they've got, advice. So the tagline that we're using is that it's a magazine for authors, written by authors. Okay, so there's that bit.
Congratulations to the whole of the Creative Commune as a group, as this organization that you have set up, Phil, that you're such a huge, massive part of. And congratulations to you, Phil, as well. I know that there's been so much work that has gone into that magazine. So all of the best with the launch. That is absolutely amazing. And
if we can also just add as well that the guest editor, who has done so much work, is Mr. Ed
Crocker. There's only one.
Why? Nerves. Ed Crocker's done all of the sort of guest editorial work and produced some absolutely fantastic stuff from from indie authors that he knows. So thank you to him especially.
Yeah, fantastic. More congratulations to you, Phil. I've come in from Jamie. So thanks, Jamie. That's great. Tim wishes you congratulations.
Thank you, Tim.
And also good wishes to Bjorn. And then Steve as well wishes you congratulations as well.
Gosh,
so thank you.
This is so exciting.
Yeah, thank you for joining us, everybody. And keep your comments coming, keep them flowing. So that's the launch of the Creative Communes magazine. So now tell us, Phil, what you are launching.
What am I launching? It is here's one I made earlier. We've got these sort of 3 books, which are the series of my fantasy noir books, the British Bureau for the Arcane. And this is the 3rd book in the series. And I am so excited by this because it's been a bit of a sort of a journey of discovery writing fantasy noir, and I hadn't really got into it sort of before now. So for those of you that aren't familiar with it, it's basically about a secret organization that is very much along the lines of MI5/MI6. Damien, after the first book, said that it was very much like Men in Black doing the sort of the fantasy version of it rather than society. Yeah. I think that's in many ways it's the best description, because that's very much what it's about. There are agents there who are trying to sort of protect the world against arcane monsters and creatures, and doing their best that they possibly can. And needless to say, all these things go horribly, horribly wrong. Book 3 is going to be the last in the series, because I wanted to bring it all very much to an end, and leave people very much wondering what on earth is going to happen to its 2 main protagonists, will they actually survive? Because the jury's out as to whether they will. I'm just going to leave you there with that one, but who knows what's going to happen. But it's a danger away.
You would do that. Like, you would just leave everyone on a cliffhanger like that, just to like
I will. Yeah, I will.
Against the reader. Get us all emotionally invested all of a sudden.
Thank you for joining us, Mark. Mark started book 3 on the book to work this morning, on the bus this morning. So that is
Mark, you're a star, mate.
Yeah.
You really are.
What a hero right there.
And Alex thinks they look great together, which is, of course, an excellent, very astute observation. Now, as you've mentioned, this book has been written by you, Phil, but edited by T'other Phil. So T'other Phil, yeah,
Phil squared.
Yeah, Phil squared. What? Talk us through like the process of what your relationship with this book is, because you obviously know the book inside out as well.
This one was a fairly simple one for me, to be honest, because Phil had got it all pretty well together when I got it. So it's, in this case, it was more of a case of polishing it up. I didn't have to do a huge deal in this one, which was, it's always nice when that happens. So I had a few notes in there for. I think the biggest notes I had were a couple of bits where, and this is quite rare, that I felt like we could have had a little bit more, because a lot of time people write too much, and here I was like, we could use a bit more information or a few extra scenes. So it felt like, you know, there's so much going on that we could always expand this story. And I mean, I was actually surprised to hear it was the last one as well, because I did feel like there's a lot in there that you could keep going with as well. It's an interesting one to edit as well, because Phil puts in a lot of good old-fashioned folklore, especially like the English and Welsh names. And as a copy editor, I'm quite meticulous about looking up these things, and I often catch people on them. And in Phil's case, it was one of these ones where I'm constantly looking them up, and it's like, yeah, that's spelt right. That's nothing to correct there. So yeah, I'd say it's all his work here, really, for this book. It's great stuff.
Yeah, fantastic. It's
one of the things I said to Phil after I'd got the notes back is that. I firmly believe that when you have a really good editor, as I have, and I'll say this with Phil, you know, sort of here, that you learn stuff no matter how much you've been writing, no matter how long you've been doing it for. You still learn stuff. You have your editor prompting you with all sorts of things of, you know, yeah, I know you've done that, but have you thought about this? And because you've done that, what about this? And it's those little sort of prompts, those suggestions that I find really, really useful. Just to illustrate what I'm talking about, there were a couple of places where, and Nick Snake was saying this yesterday on social media, that sometimes when you're writing something, you don't see a really obvious issue in the plot. And so one of the things that Phil did was, there are a couple of chapters that you can just rearrange slightly in order to just make the flow just, that little bit better. And it's when you have someone say that to you and you look at it and think, oh, God, yes. Oh, yeah. Why did I do it that way in the first place? How stupid of me. Yeah. Oh, that's much better, isn't it? And it's those sort of things that sometimes you just, you learn from and benefit from.
It's constructive feedback, I think, more than anything, isn't it? Like, I think that's the difference of what makes it like a good editor to like a not so good one, is when they provide you with those insights, when they come back to you and say, here's what you can do to strengthen up the scene, here's what you can do to kind of pull these different kind of plot kind of pieces together and kind of tie it all in or develop a character, versus I think we've all seen it, especially on Twitter, and there's been kind of horror stories over the years of editors who just nitpick, who just say, this is wrong, you've spelt that wrong, this doesn't make any sense, this is bollocks, So when you have someone who has that skill set as an editor, who kind of remains professional and says, here's what I like, okay, here's other bits maybe I'm not 100% keen on, but here's how to make them better. And I think having someone like that's an asset for life. So it's absolutely fantastic to hear that you've got that relationship.
I mean, I'm glad to hear. It's very nice of you to say, Phil, all those kind words, but I'm glad to hear it does help, because it's always my goal is to be able to actually explain what I'm doing. I always like to go through edits in a way that I feel like it's not just an edit of this book, it's an edit of a book that when you do your next book, it's going to be easier. And I feel like if you're, as an editor, if you're not able to justify every edit that you do, then you shouldn't do it. Like, I think you get editors out there who just chop and change things. It feels better like this and that. If you can't justify it and specifically explain why that needs to change or should change or could change, then it shouldn't be edited. It's
It's
It's a great way of looking at it.
I think there's one other thing though that's absolutely crucial, and that is when your editor is also an author and a really well-established author, because you've got someone that putting it bluntly, I trust everything that Phil says because I know that what he does is right because he's been doing it for a long time. He's bloody good at
say it's all right.
It's
I'd be more successful if it was.
So I know, Damien, your connection to Phil and his books is that you're a self-confessed super fan.
Absolutely, yeah.
How do you feel about this being the last book?
I feel like I'm going to wear him down. Like I'm proper going to. He's saying it's the last book now. I'm Phil, it's your moment. You're in the spotlight, absolutely. But 100%, I'm telling you, I'm going to wear him down the way I always do. Because and I think I've accidentally done it in the past where I've kind of had these kind of conversations with Phil. We'll just be chatting about writing related stuff. And again, I'm a huge fan of the Fairyland series. Like the Bastard of Fairyland, I think, is one of my up there top 5 favorite indie books because it introduces us to Robin Goodfellow. And for years I've been at Phil, I've been needling him we need more Robin Goodfellow because he's such a fantastic anti-hero, right? And eventually I needled him so much that he included him in his book of short stories set in the British Bureau of the Arcane series that you can actually get if you sign up to Phil's email kind of list. You can get that, but Robin Goodfellow from that series makes a special guest appearance within this short story world, which effectively ties it all together, And I distinctly remember kind of Phil explaining the backstory to me about the British Bureau for the Arcane, and there was so many similarities to the original kind of Fairyland series that it was like, we were talking about the Fae in both of these, and in the Bureau for the Arcane and stuff like that. It's dealing with all these kind of different kind of creatures that are native to UK and kind of Ireland and so forth. Why not meld them together a little bit? And it's like this little, the light bulb kind of just went up over his head. And I was like, my God, why don't I actually do that? And boom, there we have it. Like,
yes.
So it's, you have
true.
that continuity factor,
Very, very true. Yes. Yes, he does wear me down, I must admit, yeah.
He's kind of come at me like a few times where it's, and look, I think as authors, we all have these moments, when you're like FML, you're just like, what am I doing? I'm not getting anywhere. Like, I'm not seeing the sales I'm kind of want to see. I'm not getting the recognition that I feel I deserve and stuff like that. We all have them. Every single author has them. And it doesn't matter how famous you are, you have those moments. And just from frank interactions with Phil, I've had those conversations with him. And every single time he goes down that path, I'm like, no. I am not lying to you, Phil. I am not lying to you. I've better things to do than spend the last 8-9 years trying to convince you of something, But it is genuinely, I enjoy his works, so I'm not allowing him to go down that road. So when he says this is the last book in the series, we'll see, Phil. We will see. Right?
I think it's an excellent marketing strategy, Phil. Just make out like every book he releases is the last in the series. That's
Well, while David's been talking, I've just been making a few notes about what for and how I'm going to get out of the list that I've created at the end of book 3.
Well, Mark agrees. He agrees.
Mark, this
Mark, no, don't back it
Yes,
up.
Mark. Yes.
I agree.
What you should be taking from this, Phil, is that people love your books and people love your stories, and so the fact that there's a new Phil Parker book in the world is a great thing always around. Yeah. So I've asked Damien as a fan how he felt about this being the last in the series. To the Phil, as the editor, how did you feel when you actually made that realization of like, oh, hang on, this is this is the end. Like, how does it feel for you?
I didn't make that realization until after I'd edited it. I didn't realize, as I say, when I was reading that, I thought there's scope for more there. So it did come as a surprise to me. And, I feel like it's a series that could keep going. And, even if you want to keep people worrying about the main characters, there's a lot of other characters in there too. There's different directions you can go in with it. It's such a rich world. And I feel like, I do appreciate books. I think any author that can get a good and complex world in a short book, I've got a lot of time for. And I think Phil's really done that with these books. They're short and they've got a lot in there that leave you wanting more and leave you thinking there is more out there. And I think, it's a big world that he could tap into more. But I was surprised that he's deciding not to.
Well, I've modelled it, Phil, on this on this guy that writes a number of books about a place called Ordshaw. And he's done something very, very similar. One particular line of sort of stories came to an end, but then there were other characters who appeared, and I'm really, really genuinely intrigued by the fact that you haven't spotted that it was the end, because the ending is in many ways so open-ended that you might not recognize that I'm it is slightly with it. Let's say I'm not necessarily saying that the whole series has come to an end. I just see it changing direction very slightly, I suppose, really. But I don't want people to think, it's going to be exactly the same thing because Arlo and Tane are going to be appearing in book 4. I don't think they will, because I've given them You've given them the end of their arc. They're not even survive.
It's the end of their story arc, Phil.
It's nicely climatic.
I mean, I think it's still, there's so much potential with the series itself. And again, just to go back to the short story collection, Phil, because we had excerpts of like historical parts of the Bureau, going back like a couple of 100 years and stuff like that, it does show that there is this continuity level. There's this history to the organization that, I mean, I understand, like, say you're making changes with the main characters, but as a story and as a format, I think there's a lot of room for that in the future. And I mean, it's not a precedent to keep a series going without those kind of main characters. One of my colleagues, and I think an absolute fantastic author, Trip Ainsworth, he has a series of military science fiction novels with kind of like fantasy overlap, but he killed off his like main character from the 6th book. So basically, there's 12 books in total. So from book 6, the main character and the main kind of cast that you come all this way with were pretty much dead. And that was it, end of story. And then we moved on to a new kind of generation set in a different kind of world within this overall universe. And then by book 10, the main character came back in a completely believable way, because and he did it so well. I have to say, it's one of the most beautiful examples of execution that I've ever seen, where everybody was criticizing him and giving him a hard time, myself included, giving him shit, saying, you killed this absolutely amazing character, fuck you. And then like you have 3 books of these other characters, which are great, by the way, completely different story. But when you get to like book 10 and you're reintroduced to the original character and you find out why they're still alive, you're like, oh my God. Like the last scene, I think, was someone with a grenade. They're surrounded by petrol, and it's implied heavily that they just kill themselves with a grenade. And as Tripp kind of points out, was like, I never said anything about him taking his finger off the grenade. And it's just that type of thing, where it's like, oh man. So I mean, there's a lot of potential there, I think, in terms of how you want to take the series. And again, this is one of those arguments that I'm going to use over the next 9, 10, 11 months, badgering you. To get back to before.
It sounds like you've got a lot in your arsenal of badgering.
Yeah, I'm sorry,
I like it.
Yes, Damien the Badger.
We are going to we're going to welcome another person who's come to wish you congratulations. The person who we were hoping would join and has been able to. So let's welcome. Let's welcome Ken. Hey, Ken. How are you doing?
Sorry, Ken. How are you?
Sorry for the delay.
Hi, Ken. Hi. Thank you
for
getting back to me, man. I'm sorry that I've spoilt your dinner.
Oh no, not at all. Honestly, I'm sorry. I double booked. I didn't realize until last minute. so it was a birthday. But yeah.
Right.
So I'm glad I made it in. Well, I say in time, 25 minutes late. So apologies for that.
Yeah, no, don't worry about it. We've been killing time, and we know while that's been happening, Damien's been making me feel very, very guilty indeed, and making me realise.
That's what I do. That's what I do.
I haven't finished the series after all, so I'll be coming back to you for more covers.
I'm thinking at least 4 or 5 covers to start.
The start.
Even with me, Ken, I'll have him come back to you for the next decade, right?
just so you know, Ken, we've already received praise. So if your ears were burning, that's why. Alex said that all of these books with the cover, they look great together.
Fantastic! Thank you.
So yeah, tell us a little bit about your work with the series that you did with Phil when it came to putting these together. What's that been like for you and your experience with that?
Well, I mean, me and Phil have worked together before on a few other books as well, so I sort of like had an idea of what he was looking for, and and I mean with these ones, I think behind him you can see them. The City of Onyx, he had a complete idea of what he wanted, like. So that was easy enough to do because it was just like, and this is what I want to see. With the Bureau ones, it was more, I don't really know what, so just go crazy. So, and then I started them, and sometimes I have to rein myself in of like, I've done too many here. There's too many designs. So I'll just send him a load and see what he thinks, and do it that way. And the first one was obviously the idea of the chart, the height chart with the monsters behind. And then I think we did a similar one for the second one, didn't we? But it didn't seem to fit. So it was more the character driven, that one, for those ones.
Is one of the things that Ken does is, and it's, I'll have to emphasize the fact that I'm a Libran. And so as a Libran, I find it very difficult to make decisions. So when Ken sends me about half a dozen book covers, all different, I'm the one going, I don't know. No, I like that one. No, that one. No, that one. I can, and I've been round in circles for about 2 or 3 days before I go back to him and say, yeah, can I have that one, please? Then I'll change my mind about a day later. No, actually, I think I want that one.
But yeah, I mean, it's always good, And then I think for the newest one, it was a continuation of the second book, so it was the characters again. So yeah.
And when Ken knows how I think now, and that's a sort of crucial part of it, because I said right at the very beginning that the whole point of this, in many ways, as a session, is that for indie authors, you have that great privilege of being able to work with your artists. You're not having someone that's giving you the cover because the publishing house have already got some artist who will deliver that for you, and you don't really have a say.
Yeah,
it's what makes being an indie author one of the most exciting things, that you get to make those decisions and you get to work alongside your artist. And that sort of backwards and forwards thing that Ken's talking about is what makes it so exciting. And I just love that process. It's a case of, here's my, I tend to send in mood boards of, I've got these things in my head here. I've no idea what they might work out like. And then what Ken does, which is the genius part of it, he takes my mood board and turns it into that. And I don't know how it does it.
Oh, thank you very much. It's always a pleasure. So
Mark's said that the covers really suit the storylines of each book. They really stand out against other urban fantasy novels similar to Phil's work, and that kind of touches on what I was thinking and the question I was going to ask.
Thank you, Mark.
Which is how do you, because obviously fantasy noir, when you've got these dark anti-heroes, it's not the easiest type of cover to put together if a book like that, without revealing secrets and things that shouldn't be revealed and all of these kinds of things. Like, how difficult has it been from the point of view of looking at Phil's stories and then finding a way to visually not spoil them, Ken? Because Mark brings a really good point that they are different, they are unique, but they also are really well connected to the books.
Yeah.
So like, how have you managed to achieve that without ruining the books?
I think, Phil will obviously tell me what he wants to see on the cover. You know, I want to see this character, and then also maybe this kind of like beast or monster and this in the background. And it's just like marrying them together and, you know, and making sure that obviously you don't spoil the story, but, you know, it's put in a certain way that looks appealing and, you know, but obviously the monsters in the background are there, but the more you try to make it so that the eyes are drawn more to the characters and what they're, I mean, like I say in the second book, I forgot the characters' names, but you can see the dominant one at the front, the older man, and then the younger is dominant on the third one.
That's what we're sort of talking about, because I'd said to Ken that in book 2, it's Arlo who is the real driving force. In book 3, it's very much Tane, because he's disappeared for a good part of the story. So I wanted, sort of Tane to become very much, sort of at the front of it, just because the crucial part that Ken's getting at is that it's character covers, I think, should be driven by character. And that's exactly what he does, because Ken and I spent ages going backwards and forwards trying to get the faces of the two characters right. And poor Ken was, me saying, "You have slightly curlier hair. You make his hair a bit more ginger. Arlo needs to be a little bit grey in the beard on his cheeks. It's all that." Oh right, yeah, okay then.
I think things like that are easy to do. I'd rather them be perfect, and how you see them. So, but yeah, when I send them over and you say, "Oh, that's great," I'm like, "Oh, it makes it all worthwhile." I know I'm in the right job. So,
Amazing.
Tell us a little bit about sort of this fascination that you've got, Phil, which is really at the forefront of this series, which we've talked about already, which is so much folklore has gone into this. It's dark, it's got these noir elements to it. Tell us a little bit how sort of like where this passion, not just like sort of like where it stems from, but like what's the well that you tap into when you sit down to write like book 3?
Oh dear. When earlier I think it's tomorrow, isn't it, when we're doing the history and fiction panel up. That's on tomorrow, so I'm not going to say sort of too much, but because I've talked about it a little bit there. But one of the things that really started it was that when I began writing the book that Damon was talking about, The Bastard from Fairyland, I'd spent 5 years researching that book, and I had got so much information that was utterly irrelevant to most of the story, that I'd just sort of stored it away and largely sort of forgotten about it. But because there's sort of so much there, I just keep going back to it and thinking, "Oh, that's interesting." It was talking to Simon Kewen the other day, who's got a very similar series to my Arcane and my Bureau series, very, very similar indeed. We were talking, and the chief baddie in book 2, he was saying, "That's such a great character. Do you mind if I nick it?" It's because we've got some absolutely amazingly interesting mythological characters in these islands who are so vivid because they've been talked about for several thousand years. And they've got a rich history that I think can allow you to develop them in all sorts of ways. And for me, it was what prompted the Bureau particularly was that all these mythological stories that I know now so well, because I've spent so many years researching it, they're people that I just keep thinking, "Oh, that would fit in that story really, really well." And so when it came to book 3, I wrote book 3 in 5 months, which is an absolute record for me. I've never done that. And it was entirely down to the fact that as I was writing book 2, book 3 was already up here. And it was just a case of thinking, I know who I need to bring in to book 3, and I'm going to set it up into book 2 to do that, because this character is so crucial to all of it that I really need, and I need to bring them in and use them. And that's really how it works. There are just so many really dark and interesting, fascinating, hugely eccentric characters that we have in British and Irish mythology. And I say British and Irish because we share those stories so much. They very much are, sort of characters that will travel across the water in so many different ways.
I love it. Now, the reason that I've asked you that question, I have asked you that question for a reason, and I'm going to get to it. But first of all, I just want to welcome Emma. So, hi, Emma. Emma says that she's late to the party. Congrats on the launch. There's nothing wrong with being late to the party, is there, Ken? Like, nothing wrong with
not at all.
Fashionably late.
The reason why I've asked Phil about this well that he's tapped into when it comes to mythology and when it comes to all these different things is because I know a little bit about different types of mythology. Obviously, I'm near the Welsh border, so I've learned the Welsh language, so I have access to a lot of the Welsh culture. And being from an area in Yorkshire, there's a lot of history of things that are up there. But I didn't know, like, basically hardly anything about what Phil includes in the series because it's all new and it's fresh. And to Phil, it's very familiar. And I was going to ask the rest of you guys, Damien, T'other Phil, and Ken, what's your experience when it comes to getting this exposure to what Phil is bringing when it comes to the folklore in these stories and all this mythology? What's your experience as a reader and as somebody who's sort of like on the other side of that and seeing it as kind of like a fan of that? And have you learned things through his books?
Oh, absolutely. Like there's certain kind of parts of like the stories that Phil tells that are completely new to me. Now, I will say probably maybe 95% of the creatures that Phil writes about, I will either have heard of or I have an understanding of. There's other parts that are completely, absolutely unique, but I think it's how it's written and how the characters are developed and how these creatures are kind of portrayed. It's one of those things you don't need to be an expert. It just makes sense from how it's delivered, essentially. So even if it's a case that you come across a creature that, like, maybe culturally you don't have much experience with, I'll say case in point, or like I know in Wales, I think dragons are huge, isn't that the national symbol? We wouldn't have like any concept of a dragon over here in Ireland. Now we know what a dragon is, but we wouldn't have that in the folklore as much. But like these different variations of dragons you get in fantasy kind of stories, it'll still resonate how important it is to the people in the story, as well as the cultural impact they'll have. So I think that it literally just comes down to the confidence of the writer themselves with their kind of author's voice, and the additional information they kind of deliver within the story naturally without overloading it, without going into an entire information dump, as in, here's a dragon, he is this type of a dragon, this dragon does this dragon does that. Sometimes less is better. And I think Phil in particular, when he writes about these creatures, he does it in such a natural way that can almost become part of the folklore from your own kind of like area or whatever. Like the creatures that Phil might write about that I wouldn't have heard of outside of Phil's books still come across so naturally that it sounds believable, which I think in itself is a skill. So I think it literally just comes down to how it's delivered, and Phil does it really, really well.
What about you, T'other Phil? Because like you as an editor, I guess your job is to kind of like check on accuracy, but when you're editing for Phil on like mythology,
it makes it challenging. Sometimes you get books where you've got to check everything and you're like, oh, you've got it all wrong and need to change it. And sometimes you get books where you've got to check everything and it's all right and you're like, oh. you have to check them even harder when that happens, because you've got to be really sure that he's not slipped something in there. I totally echo everything that Damo's just said. Definitely, there's a real art to it, and Phil does very well in making it feel seamless, and it feels like a fantasy story. And I'm reading that, and as an editor, I'm reading that and thinking, is this a word he's made up, or is this a word that I need to check? And I'll check it, and it'll be like, no, it's a real word, and he clearly has done an awful lot of research into this. There's definitely a lot of the details in there that I learned about a few different names and bits and pieces. And I'd echo what Simon had said to you as well, Phil, is that the villain in the second book I thought was brilliant. A piece of folklore there, not so well known, I think, well, not these days, I guess. And they read like fantasy creations in a way. They do read like. You could get away with, you know, Phil saying, "Oh, it's just incredibly creative chap," but he's also incredibly well researched. So you can pick one or the other really, and settle whichever.
Yeah. He's talking absolute bullshit, but you know.
I always know how you get used to it.
But it sounds so believable.
It's convincing bullshit.
I would almost go the other way though. It's that you've taken something that actually is rooted very much in not real myth is kind of an oxymoron, but in real folklore, and made it feel like fiction in a way. It's kind of an opposite skill. So it feels like just a seamless story. It's not like he's jamming research at you. It does feel like something he's created. Yeah.
And Holly and Mark are echoing that in the chat. You know, Holly says that, Phil, you're a master of stealth education. You don't know you're learning stuff until it's too late. And
Stealth
Mark,
education.
yeah.
Wow.
Which again is like MI5. You see,
I like that. Yeah.
And then Mark says that the Austrians mold the folklore to suit storytelling needs. Very good at it, especially when you stay true to the core. You know,
can I just say I love that quote of Mark's about moulding folklore, because that's very much what I've always wanted to do. And the fact that Mark sort of picked up on that has made it one of my absolute favourite quotes. It's a lovely line. Yeah. God, I owe Mark so much money for that quote.
So if anybody else wants to make nice quotes and milk Phil dry, now's the time. What I imagine with the cover of book one, Ken, is it went a little bit something like this. Phil says, "I want there to be some monsters," and you think, "Great!" You draw some monsters, and then Phil goes, "No." How accurate is that? Like.
Well, I mean, like say, at first it's generic monsters, and then you're like, no, there needs to be a bit more like this and that, and then when you read them, you get a bit more of education of how they should be, and and then slowly mold into what they became in the final product. So there's
actually a story behind that first cover, isn't there, Ken? That it was a case of the both of us, both Ken and I, had agreed what the cover was going to be. We published it, and I mean you can still see it in some places. I think it's still on Goodreads actually, and it was Birthday Boy himself. It was Bjorn Larsen who contacted me after he'd read the book and said the cover's completely wrong. It's a really, really dark, grim, dark story. It's incredibly violent. And here you've got this really sort of cheery, slightly on the front of it. You've got the cover that doesn't match how dark the story is. You need to do something about it. So I went back to Kent and said, quick.
Darken it. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it would make it more horror, like grunge, and give it that vibe of like not being happy. So
the reason why I wanted to ask you guys about the way that you've reacted to what Phil's put into these books is because you will be at some point over this big weekend, you will be able to watch a discussion all about sort of incorporating history into fantasy, and Phil has some really good insights in that conversation, and tune in, you won't want to miss it. But what I wanted to highlight to you, Phil, is that everything that you were hoping to achieve with that series, you have achieved it, because this is the way that people are reacting to your book. So I wanted to say congratulations to you, because you have set out, you've done what you set out to do. I mean, how does that make you feel, sort of, being able to celebrate that you've actually achieved it? You smashed it.
Yeah, it's partly why I wanted to end the story where I have with book 3, because there is always a danger, isn't there, that you can go on for too long doing the same sort of thing, and people get bored with it. So it's the sort of it's my acting background that is that sort of says you always leave the audience wanting more, and so that's really what I'm sort of trying to do in many ways. Having said that, I have set up the ending of book 3 so that other things could happen if I wanted them to, and that's still very much at the back of my mind. Yeah, I've got another book that I've already started that's going to be the next one that I've just got to get out of my head, because it's just sort of badgering me. It's doing a Damien Larkin. It's just badgering me. So
what do you do best?
It out, but it's very similar. But to answer your question, it's very satisfying because I'm blathering and talking absolute rubbish. Yes,
I love how much you flirt with danger, Phil. Like, it's like I ask you a question and all you want to talk about is the ending of the book.
Trying to build that suspense. That's all he's doing.
It's like, if we don't get it spoiled in this live launch, that will be such a win. Like, it's no, I feel like with trilogies as well, there's something kind of iconic about having a trilogy, especially like with characters and everything like that. What I know that you said that you were influenced by other sort of works and things like that, but just tell us about sort of grimdark trilogies, Phil. Like, what's the appeal to you personally of them?
Oh God. Okay. I think. Well, no, I don't think, because I've gone through this thought process before. I've talked about the fact that I've got an acting background, and I have in my past. I haven't acted for a long time, but in my past, I've played some really dark and unpleasant characters, which I know, looking at me, and this angelic face, you'd think, how? All I can say is, makeup's a wonderful thing. I played some really dark, really quite horrible characters from one time or another, and I love exploring those characters. And I think the reason why I really got into writing when I stopped acting was it allows you to still keep on exploring the dark side of humanity, and that fascinates me. I watch the news every once in a while, and I try to avoid it as much as I can these days. But when I look at the news, it's a case of thinking the human race are an obnoxious bunch of sort of people, and there's a lot of darkness there that you don't have to look very far to access. And that, I have to say, fascinates me as a writer, to explore what those people do, why they do it, and then to give them a quite bit of a spin in terms of, as Damien was saying about characters like Arlo and about Robin particularly. They are damaged people, but there's something inside them that makes them decent. And it's about making them suffer in order to find that decency. Ooh.
Redemption quality almost, I find, especially with the likes of Robin Goodfellow and stuff like that. There's someone who's fundamentally an absolute killer, like someone who's a sociopathic, fucked up human being who's absolutely heartbroken, and he just doesn't seem to care, apart from kind of like drowning in the sorrows or engaging in whatever acts he needs to kind of get through his pain and stuff like that. But fundamentally, it comes down to he's a human being who's heartbroken because he's separated from the love of his life. And that's something I think is very well executed. And you see it again with Arlo in the likes of in the Bureau series, where he's just someone who's just so absolutely traumatized from his childhood, which I think is covered really, really well and gives fantastic insights into it. But you can kind of see how this reserved human being who's been through so much, like why he is the way he is, why he separates himself from people, even though he's surrounded by a room full of people, and he's obviously a very skilled agent. But it's the darkness and how I suppose when you come to terms with what happened to you in the past, can kind of make you into a new person. And I think that's something you feel it always echoes through all your works, even like going back to like some of the much earlier stuff. You see that redemption story. I think that's something that's so fascinating, I think, from the human experience. When they don't necessarily have to be the knight in shining armor, but when you see that, like, deep down, even though they might do messed up things, they're still capable of doing really good, compassionate kind of acts for other people. I think that's really powerful. It resonates very well. I think that's one of the core qualities of your writing that I certainly enjoy anyway.
Yeah, that's really cool. I want to just as well applaud you, because Tim has made a really interesting observation in the chat, which is that ending a trilogy isn't easy. Took Tim 4 books to write a trilogy. So he says he has a lot to learn. But this goes back again to like your skill as a writer, Phil. You know, you've set out to achieve what you wanted to. You're not trying to drag something on, or you're not trying to. You've kind of set yourself this goal and you've reached it. There is something really, really nice about a story told in 3 parts, even if it's just a character's story told in 3 parts. Yeah. So yeah. I want to congratulate you on having actually done it, because it's so tempting as an indie author to keep it going, isn't it? Right? And this is where, like, Damien would, like, having people like Damien on your team is great, but like you would just go on forever. But like you can shift the focus away from these characters as you continue the series. But in terms of what you've done, I just want to again like reiterate and just say that we are, all of us here, like here to applaud that, because it's amazing, and it will also make for a really, really good read. So if people are like listening to this and thinking, this sounds amazing, where can I get it? Where can people get it?
If you go to Amazon and you type in Phil Parker, don't buy the books on Stage Lighting, because that's not me.
It's evil twin.
That's another character. He doesn't look like me. He doesn't sound like me, and he's not me. He's another Phil Parker altogether. So don't buy those books unless you want to, unless you're really into Stage Lighting. My books on Amazon are far more about sort of dark fantasy, and you'll be able to sort of see the difference, because it's not a spotlight anywhere mentioned in any of the stories.
I could just imagine somebody getting to like page 60 and being like, this is an awful lot about light. I was expecting more monsters in this place.
Where's the folklore?
Yeah. I discovered this similarity, which was after I started writing as Phil Parker. So it was by that stage, it was a little bit too late to call myself Eric Parker, you know, which I could have done, but as I say, by that stage it was far too late. The Stage Lighting, and the other one that Stage Lighting Phil Parker has written is Grandma Does Grandad, which I think something
less said about that the better.
He's got an audience.
Look at that book, and I bet a number of people go buy it.
I really, really hope that's like a Mrs. Doubtfire story and not like
it's worse.
We can hope. Oh my god,
far worse.
Yeah, oh, I flashed up Emma saying side quests a minute ago, but I'm almost reluctant to do that now with the potential as to like what that could spawn with Grandma Does Grandad. Mark. Sorry. Yeah, you said it all, Tim. Mark says that he needs some signed copies. Are there going to be any signed copies of this film?
I've got to look into. I'm not sure how to. I don't know how to do it in a simple, sort of straightforward.
You don't know how to sign a book, Phil. You get a pen and you.
Yeah. Is that what you do?
That's what you do. Yeah, you write your signature in it.
I need to look into that. So Mark. I also sent a book to Mark. I should have. I missed a trick there. Yeah, I need to look into doing that. So yeah. Next question.
Well, if it helps, I'll just buy a bunch of your books, Phil, and I'll just sign them for you.
Yes.
Yes.
And then keep them.
Yes. Sign Damien Larkin. Yeah.
No, that's great. Watch this space, basically, Mark. Holly thinks that you selling other people's books at your launch is very much on brand. So, and I agree with that. Huge champion in the community, Phil, and we're all here to celebrate you. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you to Damien and to Ken and to T'other Phil, and to everybody who's here. What we want to do is we just want to go around and just share, where everybody can find you and all of that kind of thing. Let's start with the main man of the hour. Let's start with you, Mr. Parker. Where will people find you if they search?
Okay, if you just simply sort of type in Phil Parker into Amazon, and we've had that conversation. If you go to social media, I'm Phil Speculates, and my website is Phil Parker's Speculative Faction, and all my books are on there with sort of details about it. My blog is on there as well, and my Linktree, I think, address is somewhere on here as well, isn't it, Fraser? I think. Yeah,
I think so. Yeah, it's all in there. I hope it should be. So you'll be able to find Phil, and it's Phil Speculates, not Phil's Peck You Lattes, which is how I read it, 100%. Also, when Damien used the initials FML, in my head I read that as FHM. I didn't say anything at the time, but I am still recovering from that. Damien, where can people find you?
Just Google Damien Larkin, and I'm going to take a page out of Phil's book here. It's not Damien Larkin the comedian, it's Damien Larkin the author, right? I'm way more famous than that guy, right? I don't care how many stand-up shows he's done. I rank higher on Google SEO. So Damien Larkin, boom, this guy, bald, right? Author of the Big Red series of military science fiction stories, Lizard Skin and Sharpened Steel, and Motherland Climax by Vlad Putin. And full credit to Ken, who did the cover design for those last two kind of stories. But yeah, if you want to find me in social media, it's going to be some sort of a combination of Damo/Danger Man. And the only reason for that is because Danger is my middle name.
Whoa. Deep. With you saying about sharing the same name as a comedian, Damien, I really need to throw it over to Ken. Ken, where can people find you?
I'm under Creative Covers, so it's the website ccovers.co.uk. But again, like Damien and Phil, I don't do tarpaulins. I get emails for that for yachts and boats and stuff, and I'm like, no, I don't do that.
Amazing.
There's an alternate universe developing here, isn't there? Of all these
Exactly. It's like you guys put on the comedy shows and Phil will do the stage lighting. To the Phil, where can people find you?
Yeah, so my main website is phil-williams.co.uk, or you can Google me. I think I tend to come up as one of the more popular Phil Williamses on the internet, but not Phil M. Williams, who is much more successful as an author than me now. And he's unfortunately writing similar books because he went into dystopian fiction at some point. And so don't go after him unless you really want to. But if you find Phil Williams with English grammar guides, that is me, because I've got all sorts. But generally, I get around it by putting out more books than the other Phil Williamses. Scatter approach.
Perfect. Thank you everybody for joining. There's a few things that I just want to mention before we do. Well, first of all, really glad that you enjoyed it, Mark. Really good. Best panel book launch ever.
Oh,
brilliant.
So
the things that I want to mention are that this is the final panel for today in the Spotlight Indie Big Weekend. We will be returning tomorrow, UK time at 1 p.m. For the write-along session. So if you are an indie writer and you want to have a little bit of a writing sprint along with some amazing writers, the fantastic Holly Tinsley will be guiding you with some special guests through a write-along session. So please come and join us tomorrow at 1. It would be great to have you there. The other thing I just wanted to mention is that you still have time to enter the giveaways. Go to Spotlight Indie's social pages and you will find at Spotlight Indie, and there's loads of posts there which include giveaways of certain things. I know that Phil has contributed to a giveaway, and we've basically extended the deadline for when we're gonna make the draw for those giveaways. So the very final panel of the big weekend on Sunday is when we're gonna do the giveaway drawing. So you've got basically until then to enter. So get onto it. Make sure you enter the giveaways because there's some great stuff to win. And in the meantime, thank you so much for joining us, Damien, Phil, to the Phil, Ken, everybody who's tuned in live, everybody who is catching up on this later. Thank you for joining us through day 1 of the big weekend. We will see you back here bright and early. Well, 1 p.m. is not really early, but we will see you bright tomorrow, ready for more. So thank you and good night.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye.